Health insurance in the United States is a scam. In fact, I was sick the whole last week, and I didn't even think once to call a doctor because I know there'd be some copay, probably hundreds of dollars just to see a doctor. F all that. This video is from Second Thought, an excellent YouTube channel. American healthcare is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. And I know this because I moved from Europe. You might ask, what the hell? Why? Well, the US is great for many other reasons. So let's at least look at the thing it's absolutely one of the worst for, which is health insurance, healthcare in the United States. Let's have a look. Let's see what they say.
We continue to follow a major story.
Deadly shooting in Midtown Manhattan.
Police say this was definitely a targeted shooting.
Late last year, Luigi Mangione allegedly shot and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York. Right here. We started working on this video a while ago, so we don't have all the details yet. But one thing is already clear. Not a ton of people are mourning his death.
People celebrating this is a sickness. Honestly, it's so disappointing.
Why would you be in such a celebratory...
I mean, tens of thousands of deaths from United Healthcare denying everything, or one death from the CEO and a little shock to the system. Pick your poison, right?
mood about the execution of another human being.
This is revolutionary leftist evil.
They're now
that guy's an idiot.
Cheering for the cold-blooded killer.
And let's be honest, yeah, obviously, American healthcare is beyond messed up. Let me just give you a quick example from my own life. I want to show you something.
Let's see it.
This is a real bill I got 2 years ago. It's from the day my daughter was born. We were very lucky. No complications, no special meds, just about the most bare bones delivery you can get. That one day in the hospital cost us nearly $6,000, or 2 full months' income for the average American. And that's with
that's disgusting.
Both of us being on United Healthcare. So, you know, if we had been living in New York, again, we were lucky. The average birth in the US cost nearly 11 grand. Insane healthcare bills like these are the norm here. Americans collectively spend an insane $4 trillion a year on healthcare, and we just can't afford it. It's hard to know exactly, but it's estimated that about 500,000 Americans, 500,000 people every single year, are forced to declare bankruptcy or sell their home to cover their medical debt. You probably knew this already because, like all of us, you have the internet, and you've seen literally any GoFundMe campaign. About a third of them are people needing help with medical bills. And this is all in spite of the fact that we have a decently high insurance coverage rate in this country. Millions of Americans are still uninsured, to be clear, but for the 90-ish% that are covered, insurance sucks. Even before any of the claim denials start rolling in, and don't worry, we will get to that, most of us are paying several $1,000 deductibles and copays before we even get the privilege of our claim being denied. There are issues at almost every level of our healthcare system, but insurance companies are clearly the biggest pain point.
Well, so, sure.
Let's dive in.
It's like they just lobbying, right? They want to stay alive, and so to get rid of them is like trying to get rid of an organism that just doesn't want to die. It's a virus, man. It's like a bacteria or something. I mean, it's just very difficult. There's a lot of money involved, for sure.
Howdy everybody, just wanted to stop by real quick to let you know that I'm now posting book reviews on Means TV.
Book reviews.
We've got some bigger exclusive content in the works, but I'm working on reading more nonfiction this year, and I figured, why not share my thoughts? My first review covers Invisible Doctrine, The Secret History of Neoliberalism, and it's available right now for all Means subscribers. I've got my second one in the works too, and that one is covering The World After Gaza. Turns out I'm a pretty harsh reviewer. So if you're looking for extra content, or you want to see if a book is worth reading based on some YouTuber's opinion, check out the link below to get 20% off your Means TV subscription.
Hey, follow.
It's a cooperatively owned, explicitly socialist streaming service. It's got some amazing original content, and every sign up through my link directly supports this channel. So thank you for considering it.
If you want to see more videos, go to his link. Well, I'm going to share his channel in the description. So.
All right, back to the video.
Definitely a horror story.
Over the last few months since Thompson's death, we've seen a flood of horror stories on social media from people sharing how companies like UHC have treated them or their loved ones. From denying necessary chemotherapy sessions to multi-year delays through six-figure bills being denied and bankrupting families. Health insurance companies are despised, and for good reason. Just take Cigna. They cover about 20 million Americans, and on average, their claim denial rate is about 15 to 20%.
That's
How do
high.
they get to that number? Well, they spend literally less than a second and a half denying your claim. According to a Cigna doctor, quote, "We literally click and submit. It takes..."
How is this allowed? How is this allowed? This is disgusting. Oh man, this for-profit insurance for health is just the worst idea the US could ever come up with. It is so bad. Look at this.
10 seconds to do 50 at a time.
That is crazy.
And just hold on now, because Cigna isn't even one of the worst ones. UHC has a 33% denial rate, and the reason they're so high up the list could be because they use an AI model called NH-Predict to make some of these claim decisions, and it allegedly has a 90% error rate.
You know, there's no way this AI model wasn't programmed to have some form of incredibly high error rate. It doesn't naturally come to a 90% error rate. I don't believe it. It obviously has some parameters it needs to follow in some sense, right? 90%? You're joking. That's so high, man.
This sort of stuff is no less murderous than what Mangione allegedly did.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of people die or lose everything because of this blatant disregard for human life. So while this was murder, whoever did it, the fact that a tiny fraction of the violence the ruling class subjects us to is being thrown back at those who benefit the most from our suffering is hardly surprising.
Yeah, it isn't surprising at all. I've actually spoken to someone like, oh, that's not how you do it in the US. You go through the system and stuff. I'm like, man, have you seen the system? The system is killing 10,000 or more, tens of thousands of people through that insurance of denial and stuff. And now you're afraid that one person got killed and it doesn't make sense. Look, you could go ahead and say, oh, I'm not for murder, I'm not for killing, it's not right. And say, no, this was right. It was. He deserved it. 100%. That's what I believe.
Care is rationed like this in the wealthiest country in the world to enrich unnecessary middlemen to an absurd degree. It should be more surprising that this didn't happen sooner. You might have already seen this circulating online, but the profits of all these despicable health insurance companies have doubled, tripled, or even quadrupled in just the last 10 years.
Of course.
Don't worry though, all that money is making it back to the people really putting in the work. Health insurance CEOs have raked in tens of millions of dollars a year denying desperate people's necessary claims. And yes, thankfully, they make just enough to set some money aside for millions of dollars in political contributions to both sides of the aisle, making sure this lucrative arrangement doesn't change. And let me be clear and take a break from these statistics for a second. No other country is like this.
Yeah.
The term medical bankruptcy is practically unheard of outside the US. There is no equivalent to the tens of thousands of preventable deaths caused by the lack of insurance, underinsurance, and denial of procedures that we have in this country. But if we want to understand how health insurance became so toxic, we need to step back from the present, zoom out, and go back to the 90s.
You've got mail.
Good compilation.
Because it's at this time that things changed pretty dramatically in the world of insurance writ large. See, for a few years, the insurance industry, both medical and otherwise, went through what's called a soft market. A soft market, in insurance, is a moment when prices come down as insurers offer riskier policies to try to capture more of what's become a pretty saturated insurance market. This is a normal part of the business, and according to Jay Feinman, the author of Delay, Deny, Defend, the pendulum between hard and soft markets usually swings every 4 to 6 years. Starting in 1988, though, insurance companies launched into a soft market that would last an unprecedented 12 years. The reason this was a problem is because soft markets only tend to work for a short time. Eventually, those riskier policies mean more claims, because the events they're covering are, of course, riskier, and more claims means lower profits. Normally, the market eventually swings back, with insurers upping their rates, offering more expensive policies, and restricting who gets covered. But this extended soft market prevented that, digging into insurance company profits and causing annual losses in the tens of billions of dollars. At the same time as insurance enters this long soft market, two more things happen. Medical costs keep rising, and the US gets hit with a string of natural disasters, the most dramatic of which was probably Hurricane Andrew in 1992.
And clearly there's been a lot of damage, but this can only be described as total devastation.
If you weren't around back then, until Katrina, Andrew was the most expensive natural disaster the US had ever seen, destroying entire cities and resulting in insurance companies receiving over 600,000 claims and needing to cover about $16 billion of damages. Money that they just didn't have. 11 major insurance companies declared bankruptcy, and those that weathered the storm took heavy losses. But events like Andrew are what insurance is there for. When you pay into an insurance policy, you are promised by the insurer that if you set money aside today and everyone pools their risks, some unforeseen event won't lead you into financial ruin.
You know what's funny about this method here, where everyone pays into a box basically, and everything is in there, and if one person has a problem, they can pull from that box? That's the idea, right? Sounds a whole lot like socialism, doesn't it? And paying taxes, doesn't it? I mean, of course, this is somewhat voluntary, but not really. And what happens is this. I hear a lot of Americans speak a lot about how they don't want universal health care. It's socialism. It's a socialist procedure or whatever. But at the same point, what's the difference here? You know, if you can't get the basics in order at least, and I don't even care, man. If you don't want to do it in that way, just figure out how to do it without corruption and lobbying and get it in order so that people, when they break their hand or they fall down the stairs or they get cancer or whatever, don't have to worry that their entire financial life that they've been working for 40 years is gone. Poof, gone. Just lost. You know what? That's it. You should take something like the French medical system, right? Where it's both public and private. I mean, something, man. This is the one thing in the US which is absolutely the worst idea possible to keep it going like this, because it just doesn't work. And if there's going to be something that works, at least pull a system that a country is doing well. There are so many countries with so many examples. Just take one. Take one that fits for the size of the country and for whatever. Just make it work, man. Like, the question is more, why isn't it being changed and why isn't it being made to work in some sense? And that is what I hope he'll answer, because it's more like who's stopping it in some sense. Because everyone wants it. Everyone wants a system that works, no? I mean,
if something goes wrong, you're covered because they took that risk. And sometimes the risk doesn't pay out. Yeah. Sometimes big events just mean there are negative years. And while this doesn't have to be a problem for all insurance companies, it's a really bad one for for-profit insurance companies.
Yeah.
Between the extended soft market and the sudden need to pay out way more claims, insurance companies were in a tough spot. Mergers and acquisitions consolidated the market into a tight oligopoly. And this profitability dip mattered more than ever because, on top of all the rest, more insurance companies had suddenly moved to a more aggressive for-profit model. The standard insurance model used to be the mutual company. Unlike stock companies, these are insurance companies that are owned by policyholders themselves. If people pay into insurance more than is used to pay claims, or if any investment of the funds returns a profit, those funds go back to policyholders or get used to reduce everyone's premiums. It's a decent setup that makes the insurance company work much closer to the interest of those who actually use it, because those who use it are technically also the owners. In the 80s and 90s, though,
much better
profits
idea.
became slim and all these companies were scrambling for access to capital to stay afloat, the most optimal survival strategy became demutualizing, turning the company into a stock company. This meant getting money from outside, and that meant suddenly insurance companies had shareholders demanding increased profits and returns on their investments. Enter McKinsey. You might know McKinsey from such bangers as getting everyone at your job fired or taking 2 years to come up with trash cans.
Love it.
Figuring out how to deliver to shareholders
Gotta have a good trash can.
is McKinsey's bread and butter. If it means cutting personnel, reducing benefits, automation, coming up with a new way to overwork staff, that's not their concern. They're there to make the number go up. So when big insurance companies hired them in the 90s in this mad scramble for profits, McKinsey zeroed in on what made insurance companies less than maximally profitable. They were being insurance companies. And the problem could be solved if they just stopped. Specifically, if they stopped approving fair claims. See, before the 80s and 90s, insurance companies were structured based on the idea that they'd be profitable or not based on pricing out policies correctly. It was the job of insurance underwriters to define what was covered, at what price, and who it could be sold to, making predictions and hopefully making them accurately enough to keep the company afloat. But for you, once you enrolled, you could essentially treat a covered event as risk-free because the insurance company had agreed to cover the risk for the price of the policy. There was a guarantee they would pay the price, and the company's claims adjuster had only a very limited role in figuring out if what you made a claim for was covered, which most of the time it was.
To make sure it happened, I guess.
Any doubt, insurance companies had an internal policy code of ethics that incentivized them to settle in favor of policyholders over their own interests. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Nationwide is on your side. You're in good hands with Allstate. You get the idea. But McKinsey suggested a new approach. Delay, deny, and if it comes to it, defend.
I have to say, like, what scumbag could sit down and think of this process and say, hey, this will be a good idea. Let's recommend it to these insurance companies because they'll make more money. Like, bro, are you not even thinking about your next door neighbor or your other person down the street? You must be the dirtiest of the dirty to even come up with this and then to actually create a whole slide or whatever presentation to show this to someone. You're joking. Like, this is how you can maximize profits if you just delay, deny, and most people will not want to, like, there's literally the devil walking around trying to promote this. This is crazy.
Delay.
Probably the devil wears Prada, isn't it that?
Claims reimbursement.
It's going to be people in suits and people in good outfits walking around talking as if it makes sense. I'm telling you, if you've ever been young and looked at, like, some of these people coming out of the offices in suits and stuff and thought, wow, that's they're like, oh, it's the next level of people, you know? Some of the most scummiest people come out of those damn offices. And they come up with the worst ideas just because it's a system and they can't realize that this is a dumb idea and it's completely immoral. They don't realize it. And then they just continue their day and think, oh, I got a raise. That's nice. Yeah, I've been working hard. Shoot yourself, man.
Until people
this
give
is
up.
nasty.
Deny as many claims as possible and hope people won't fight back. And if they do fight back, put on the boxing gloves and get the most expensive lawyers you can afford to make sure they'll regret trying to take you to court.
Someone that comes up with something like this and actually implements it needs the death penalty. Tell me I'm wrong.
This is now
This
the
is nasty.
standard for health insurance. And the only reason we know about this strategy is because of a court case.
Okay, maybe it needs some proof, huh? You need
against Allstate.
I'm getting
In
annoyed.
2008,
You
the
can hear
company
it.
was forced to release internal documents showing what McKinsey's influence on the company's practices had been. And wow, is it bleak. McKinsey slides told insurance companies to treat their customers as if they were in, quote, a zero-sum game. Recommended that the company offer aggressive, quote, take it or leave it offers to strong-arm desperate people into deals as low as $50 for bodily injuries, and to delay policy disputes for a standard 3 years to force people into bankruptcy and desperation. And if all else fails, take people to court knowing full well that someone relying on insurance for an expensive medical procedure isn't going to have the money or the time or even simply be healthy enough to get into an expensive legal battle with one of the wealthiest companies in the world. On top of this, McKinsey also suggested Allstate adopt a computer program called Colossus. If human claims adjusters might feel a shred of human compassion, Colossus, according to McKinsey, would firmly stick to making lowball offers and maximizing profitability, something McKinsey guaranteed, quote, shareholders will notice.
Isn't that insane? It all came down to how much we can pull from people in terms of their health and not even realizing that these people are literally dying with this strategy. I can't fathom in what office you must sit for ideas to be floated around like this and for everyone to just not even have a comment about it. Disgusting, man.
Notice. Before long, McKinsey was in every major
There, look, the devil wears Prada, right?
insurance company's headquarters giving the same pitch, and everyone eagerly applied their recommendations, making insurance increasingly legally complicated, increasing automation, and denying more claims. This is the standard now, and very few politicians actually care to fully acknowledge that. While policies like the ACA, Obamacare, have helped a lot of people to get on health insurance who previously couldn't because of things like prior conditions, which is a fantastic thing, the bill wasn't written to challenge the profit of these greedy corporations or undercut their ability to screw you over in other ways. Through things like Medicare Advantage, for example, federal money doesn't go directly to covering your necessary procedures, but instead lets private insurance companies increase premiums and rack up billions in profit by essentially subsidizing them. It's a big part of the reason the last 10 years have seen such a boom for these companies, because policies were written with middleman profits in mind. But we have solutions. Bernie's Medicare for All, for example. Modeled on the likes of every other wealthy country's nationalized healthcare system, a single-payer plan run not-for-profit could both increase coverage and reduce costs for millions of Americans. For-profit medical insurance would cover only a tiny portion of procedures, and most of your health costs would almost vanish overnight, saving Americans $450 billion and almost 70,000 lives, according to an estimate in The Lancet.
That's absolute, like, I mean, obviously this would have to be put into effect if you could, to see if those are the results from it, right? But imagine with the flick of a button, suddenly you could save 70K lives a year and $500 billion. I haven't read Medicare for All from Bernie. I don't know it. So I can't say if I agree with it or not, but let's just say it's actually the right thing and it's modeled after countries to just do it right. What stops something like this coming into effect?
That's it.
And why does no one care? Everyone's just too apathetic, I imagine. I mean, I get it. It's a big system to fight. But like, who's in the way of this? Is it just the lobbying from other insurance companies? What is it?
Instead of paying over $6,000 in premiums to a private company, for example, you would pay a 4% tax for just $1,240 a year for the M4A. In other words, you save $4,000 a year. Because when you cut out the need for profits and all the private spending going into things like advertising and developing new claim-denying AI, you save a lot of money. An insurance policy that doesn't need to pay out $10 million a year to some CEO is inherently going to cost you less. No billing department to spend hours of your life sitting on hold with, no random bills in the mail, just a single system of accounting, making sure you get the care you need at no or low cost. This is the reality for millions of people living in just about every high and middle income country in the world. Looking at these other countries, the benefits are obvious. Beyond the fact that they literally cannot fathom the concept of medical bankruptcy, it's simply not true that these countries face things like longer wait times or worse quality care.
Okay, so I guess he's comparing worse quality care and longer wait times to the US, I imagine. And I don't have a comment on that, but I can say that some of the public healthcare in other countries, but like for example, Denmark, where I'm born and raised, it can get annoying sometimes when because the incentive is not of the doctor to really do a good job for you to return, sometimes they just don't do that good of a job. So you can switch doctors and find one that works for you, and that's great. And some will go beyond the measure for you. It really depends on the person sometimes. So there's still a great system. I would argue it's 100 times better than the US for sure. But I always wonder what it takes to get a system where you have the excellence of privately paid medical help, which is not even always the case in private, but let's just say it was. And at the same time, the access to it in the way of something like Medicare for All by Bernie or whatever, or some other system paid through taxes. I know the French do a public-private system, but what would it take, Because you don't want to get that complacency of doctors that people are going to come in anyways, they pay their taxes, I'm safe, it doesn't matter. What do we do to get people wanting to go beyond the measure instead of just, oh, you have this problem, here's some painkillers. So you got this problem, here's some painkillers, because that's not what you want. You want good solutions, and for doctors to listen to what you have to say and find a treatment based on what you want, and what is correct, but a mix of it as well. Because some people don't want to do it one way or the other. There's a lot to health, man, and it ain't that simple sometimes. I don't know. Do you know one? Or where are you from even? Like, are you from the US? What do you think about the healthcare here? What do you think about it if you're from somewhere else? Let's finish this video.
While different countries have slightly different metrics, more people in Germany, France, and Australia can see a doctor the next day than in the US. 4% of Americans wait 4 months or more for non-emergency surgery, compared to 2 and 0% in France and Germany. And doctors in Sweden and Australia report patients having a hard time getting specialized tests and care at
so he's definitely comparing it to the US, right? So in Denmark, if I wanted to see a doctor, it was also way, 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 way quicker than 4 months. That's a joke. 4 months is a joke. I know during COVID, there were many issues in, for example, New Zealand. I don't know about Australia. I know in New Zealand, some people were having surgeries they needed, which took like 2 years. It wasn't, I guess, I mean, they weren't going to die from it because it was like a back thing, But apart from that, like, that's just like complete negligence, right? Complete incompetence. So, but definitely better than the US here. I can see that for sure.
Half the rate than doctors in the US do. The whole wait times thing is BS, and usually based exclusively on the mess that privatization has made of the British NHS.
The British NHS is a joke. You don't want to compare anything to that.
As for the quality of care, we have a lower life expectancy than Cuba, a country we've embargoed and cut off from the world for 60 years. Why? They don't treat healthcare like a business, but as a responsibility to their citizens. Can you imagine that? What that would be like? Instead of watching your loved ones die because healthcare scalpers want to make more money.
Healthcare scalpers.
The point is, this is unsustainable. Bills like mine just can't be the norm. There's no way to keep going at this rate, with costs going up every year, CEOs pocketing millions, and hundreds of thousands of people dying preventable deaths while leaving behind mountains of debt to their family. The fact that we've seen millions of people cheer on somebody's death should be a wake-up call to the ruling class.
100%.
This reaction would only be surprising if we weren't constantly surrounded by the much greater violence of capitalism on a daily basis. That instead, their response has been shock, condemnation, and doubling down on fear-mongering with jackbooted cops and corrupt officials just shows how loose their grip on public opinion is becoming. More people than ever are seeing the cruelty that makes profits flow. The cruelty inherent to this system, and it's only a matter of time until this violence is put to an end. Whoever shot Brian Thompson was one person. One person, if it was Luigi, with incoherent median voter type politics. That one person shook the ruling class to its core.
Good.
Imagine what organized, politically informed resistance to these practices could achieve. We're only powerless as long as we choose to roll over and accept being kicked, spat on, and laughed at by the corporate and government elite.
He's right that everyone's apathetic at the point, right? Like, and there is stuff you can do, but you can't blame someone to go and just use straight violence to shoot this man. You can't, because most people are not going to know how to play the game of the system that's been built, going through legal loopholes and all those things. It's just going to be too much work and too many struggles to face. And instead, just doing what you can do, which is the act of violence, is so straightforward sometimes, and it brings a lot of change and a lot of shock, or at least awakening to people, like a reawakening. I mean, I honestly hope something happens with the healthcare system. I mean, but yeah, we'll have to see.
That doesn't mean bands of roving vigilantes. It just means average people taking the time to educate themselves, learn how capitalism functions, join socialist organizations, and say, enough is enough. We're not working until our demands are met. This shipment isn't leaving port until our demands are met. These trains are out of commission until our demands are met. The era of invincible capital is coming to an end, and it's our job to make sure it happens quickly.
Thank you, sir. This is a great channel. Look, if Bernie's thing is going to save people about, what was it, 3,000 or 4,000? a year? What's the holdup? What's the holdup here? Is it because it's a socialist thing and everyone is against stuff like that, or what is it? Let's read the comments, man. Let's see. A single dude smokes one CEO. A tragedy. Health insurance industry smokes tens of thousands of people per year. Hey, it's just business. Man, relax. We just got to increase the profit margin by 0.2%. Yeah, it's just business, man. These people shouldn't have gotten sick in the first place. Idiots. The media went really quiet on this one as soon as it was apparent people weren't having the desired reaction, hoping that it'll be forgotten instead. Yeah, I remember this. It came out and everyone was like, free Luigi, man. And then they just stopped talking about it. It was quite funny. In USA, we don't own our lives, we rent it. Maybe Luigi should run for president to stay out of jail. I think he could win. Wouldn't be surprised. A 90% error rate means it's not an error and is working as designed. This should be illegal. I agree. Whoever did this just so that it can deny without actually looking at a thing properly sounds like a straight legal case to me. But again, who's going to take it, right? There's a reason Breaking Bad could only happen in the US. Making money with basic human needs should be criminalized. I agree. There's certain things, not all, man. Like if you're a landlord, you got to make a bit of profit, right? But it has to be within reason. Anyways, I love how freaked out the mainstream media are about people celebrating and just not condemning Luigi. Shows you how out of touch they are with reality. The thing is, the media and politicians and the average person live in two separate realities, man. Parallel universes. We don't even, like, they say this and, like, we say this. It's not the same thing at all. I'm always surprised when I read on X, like, posts from politicians. First of all, they all say the same thing or similar things, and it's all pro-Israeli. It's not even America anymore. And then you look at everyone else, and they're all saying a totally different thing. It's literally like talking like this, like it doesn't make any sense. There are people asking, why isn't this generation having kids while simultaneously costs half a year of savings on a decent salary just for a smooth delivery day in hospital? Yeah. I live in Denmark. So have I, most of my life. And when I was a kid and learned about the US health system, I asked, but what if they can't afford it? To which I was met with silence. Privatizing human needs is a crime. I think privatizing it is very weird. Italian living in Italy here. At the end of January, I got hospitalized for almost a month because of a pneumonia. My bill, $0. We have universal health care paid for by taxes. That's right. Well, paid for by taxes, paid for by you. And anyone who pays taxes, really. Or paid for by the taxpayer, right? Which is most citizens, I think. This is a perfect example of what England called social murder. Oh, Engels, sorry. Called social murder. Loss of lives directly caused by political and socio-economic system is the same as murder. Yes, and it should be trialed as such, too. Anyone who wonders why Canadians don't want to be the 51st state might want to watch this video. I agree. Canada, stay by yourself. I'm Brazilian. My country is considered poor, but we have free healthcare for all. Crazy, huh? It is still possible to contract private healthcare for a premium. Yes, like it should be. But we still have the option not to do it and simply go for public health center or to any unit of urgent care. Ambulances are also free. And if they take you to a private hospital, they legally can't deny care. And you're transferred to a public hospital once you're stabilized. This is great. I think there's a doctor's code where they cannot deny people care, right? This is beautiful. It's beautiful to read something like this. Every time I think of how you can die from getting unlucky with a medical condition in America, it reminds me of just how morally bankrupt any society has to be to have the medicine to treat people and refuse. Man, I know there's here. I'm a physician. I would gladly take a pay cut if it meant Medicare for all could be instituted. Unfortunately, in the decaying world of our medical system, my mindset is now focused towards doing the best I can for my patients and retiring as soon as I can. Practicing in this healthcare system is a moral injury to my soul every day. The thing is, man, there's so many people like this, I'm sure, who just want to do a good thing and get paid fairly, and they got to choose or not have people come to their door that need help and they can't give it. This is like, people become doctors and nurses. Well, today it's a lot for just money, isn't it? I wouldn't know the percentage, but there are a lot of people who just want to do good in this world, who want to come home and feel like they saved some people. It's really sad, man. Let's do the last one. This is too much. So another one. Basically, the hospital bill was $0 and everywhere but the U.S., right? Are you from the U.S.? Which state are you from? How's healthcare for you there? How much do you pay? Is it like some obscene amount? And what you pay when you get help, do you still have to pay? You pay for pay, right? I need to stop.